I really had an epiphany of, okay, this is how you can grow a business without working 60, 80 hours a week. And actually you can grow a business very hands off.
Welcome to the UpFlip podcast. I'm your host, Alex Freeman, and on today's episode, I'm interviewing Wise Coatings founder Brandon Vaughn. Brandon had a unique approach to starting his business, and it's paid off for him in a big way. The business was just started in 2021, and it's already generating nearly $500,000 in revenue every month. Brandon's expertise with business systems, marketing, and hiring are the secret to this phenomenal growth. Today, you'll hear his tips in each of those areas and how he's leveraged that knowledge to build a thriving business. Brandon, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. It's great to be here.
To get things started, can you give us a little bit of an overview of the when and why you got Wise Coatings started?
Yeah, so I decided to launch Wise Coatings in January of 2021. I, in the past, have built a service company. I had a company called All Clean that did pressure washing, and I built that from zero to $500,000 a month over the course of about 4.5 years. And sold that in 2018. Always wanted to get back into another service business, but wanted to document the whole journey of it along the way for other entrepreneurs. So it kind of started out as this, idea to be a YouTube channel. Start something and document the whole process from picking the business name, putting together the website, hiring the first employees, and just kind of making it this public, lens into starting a business from scratch. And so I picked Wise Coatings and off we went.
And why did you choose the floor coating niche for this particular experiment? Do you think that the way you got this business off the ground would work in other niches?
Great question. I picked it because I had no experience in it. I went and actually just, took a look at several different service businesses. And there's something really satisfying about the work of going into a garage that looks nasty and has oil stains and cracks, and then leaving it looking like absolutely beautiful. That part appealed to me on just the aesthetic side. But the other reason why is the business model itself has really great gross margins, and you could pay technicians really well. And so that was attractive to me as opposed to just like a standard painting business. But the way that I started this business, absolutely it would work in other niches. It's the exact same way that I grew my exterior cleaning company. It's the same way that, I've coached other entrepreneurs in growing their businesses, which is a marketing and systems and people approach, as opposed to going out and being the person on the tools, actually building out some frameworks before you begin.
I want to talk a little bit about the pressure washing business as well before you got to Wise Coatings. What did that experience teach you? What did you learn from growing that business that influenced how you got started with Wise Coatings?
I didn't go to college, but I got a bachelor's degree in pain and a PhD in suffering going through growing that business. It was really, really tough. I made just about, at least I believe, every single mistake you could make in growing a service business. It was really hard. I had some good mentors and coaches along the way that really kind of helped me understand working on the business, not just working in the business, which was a shift for me because my dad was an owner-operator window cleaner for 33 years, and he was on the tools, doing the work on the ladder every single day with, zero to maybe one part-time employee. And that was kind of how I grew up, with that entrepreneur mindset. So it was tough to break that cycle. But when I broke it, I really had an epiphany of, okay, this is how you can grow a business without working 60, 80 hours a week. And actually you can grow a business very hands off. And so that's what kind of led me to, start over with all that information that I had gained.
So once you had chosen the floor coating niche for Wise Coatings, what market research were you doing before you actually got the business running, and how did that influence the early planning and marketing?
Yeah, great question. So pretty much what I started with was coming up with the brand and trying to have a really compelling brand. I did lots of market research into, what trademark availability was there, what domains were available, what state and national registries for business names. That's kind of like an important component. But then the other part that I really spent a lot of time thinking is, how can Wise Coatings be different? What's going to be our real competitive edge that other floor coatings businesses aren't focused on. What's that hook for when we talk to a customer and they're like, wow, we really want to work with you because of this. And so, we made some really strategic decisions on, those differentiators. And that was a big part of that early research. And then of course, going and looking at other floor coatings companies, seeing what they were doing, looking at some competitors, looking at some other things, not with the desire to copy them, but with the desire to do something different. And then, of course, going to homeowners directly and really kind of polling them and getting a good sense of what they would be looking for. That really informed most of our decisions on how we wanted to run the business.
And what were some of those startup costs? Like, what was the initial investment to get Wise Coatings off the ground? And what are some of those main expenses for opening that if someone's looking into following in your footsteps that they should be planning for?
So we set aside a budget of 15 grand to do everything. And we spent a huge chunk of that on marketing. So going out and hiring a professional brand designer and, paying him several $1,000s to create a really epic brand and logo and vehicle wraps and, going out and getting someone to build us a really epic website so we could get a really strong digital presence to where people would show up and they'd be like, wow, this company knows what they're doing, even though we just started the week before. And then, of course, the equipment is the other big expense. A floor grinder, can cost a brand new $25,000. And so we had to kind of, leverage leasing of vehicles and getting a small, loan out at the beginning so that we could keep our cash flow low and we could kind of roll into it with very positive cash flow and not having to go buy assets cash. Those are really the biggest expenses. And then, of course, first month's ad spend. So we advertise a lot on Facebook and, pretty much from day one would spend anywhere between $3,000 and $5,000 a month in Facebook ads to be able to start getting work coming in.
And how long did it take to recoup that investment? And I guess the related question is, how quickly did the business become profitable?
So the business was profitable pretty much the very first month. And then the second month, we had kind of a disastrous job that really hit us hard. And in that YouTube episode, I call it Hell Week because it was, we literally survived with $50 left in our bank account. But by month 4, we were doing $100,000 a month and at a 30% net profit. So it really recouped a lot of that. We were able to pay off a lot of those loans that we had, initially started out with. And we're really able to kind of fund that cash into getting another vehicle on the road. So it really became profitable pretty quickly.
How do those numbers compare to today? Like, what is average monthly revenue now and profit margins? Have the profit margins changed in that time?
So average monthly revenue now between our 8 locations, total is about $450,000 to $500,000 a month. And the profit margins we typically look for is anywhere between, a 15 to 25% net. The margins on that have been probably closer to the 15% side because, we've opened up 8 locations since we launched in January of 2021. And, of course, that really can kind of be a kick to the profitability of the business just with a fast growth curve.
A quick reminder to our listeners about the UpFlip YouTube channel, where you can hear more stories of how new business owners built their companies. You can find that at youtube.com/UpFlip. Brandon, one of the things that's really interesting about what you've done with Wise Coatings comes from the fact that it is not your first business that you've built. So with that kind of multi-business expertise, what systems does a business need to have in place before it begins, and why are those so crucial?
So the 4 systems or 4 departments that I look at to systemize create an acronym called MAPS. So we have the marketing department of getting leads coming in, the admin department of scheduling, dispatching, answering phones, doing back-end office work. The production department is the vehicles, the people, the equipment, the inventory to go out and actually complete the work. And the sales is the act of actually converting all those marketing leads into, real paying jobs. So every single one of those 4 departments, and then the executive department that oversees everything and looks at business forecasts and budgeting and financials, all of those departments have systems that are required to put in place. So a lot of the systems that I was really looking at the very beginning, I was able to literally just copy and paste those into our Google shared drives and utilize those same job descriptions and documents and things that we have in our Conquer program, which is our business coaching program, and just like put that in and get that going from day one. So, they're crucial because without it, everything goes off the rails. And especially in building a business where, it's largely absentee, you have to be able to put those things in place so that way your employees don't come to you every day and say, hey boss, what do I got to do next? It's just all documented there for them.
And how do you develop those systems and get them put into place?
The definition that I like to have for a system is a documented process on how to do something important in your business. So, but that keyword is documented. So one of the easiest, ways is while you're doing the thing, document it. If you're training a technician on how to coat a floor and roll it out, like give them your cell phone and say, okay, John, I want you to go ahead and just hit record and record me doing this. And then now you're training your employee while you're creating a business system. And for future hires, that future hire can watch that video as a good starting point in your training system. And, just do that repeatedly. When you answer a phone call, hit the record button on your computer and record how you answer the phone and how you talk to customers. You just have to get it out of the person's head on how to do something and get it into some kind of a documented format.
How would you describe Wise Coating's brand identity? And how did you build and promote that when you first got started?
Our brand identity, we definitely wanted it to feel very professional, to where people understood that, wow, these people really know what we're doing. We wanted to focus a lot on education to really educate them on, all the different aspects of it. We wanted to have a big certification process for all of our technicians so that they really clearly understood that the people that are coming to their homes have gone through an extensive training process to come in and do their work. And we wanted to, kind of show that. We have a huge elephant as part of our brand identity. And, when you think of the wise elephant, the elephant, has a great memory and, they're strong, they're durable, they're tough. When you think about, how bulletproof, right? Like this big, huge elephant is and how tough their skin is. We kind of wrapped all that into the brand story and brand identity. Plus, we partnered up with the World Wildlife Fund. To every floor that we did, we'd actually adopt a baby elephant in our customer's name. So at the end of the job, our customer would get a little picture of the baby elephant that they adopted and information on that. And that went to support like conservation efforts. So people feel good about supporting a company that gives back and, really is involved in the bigger picture. So that, there's a lot of intention that kind of went into that.
I'm curious how that partnership came about, how that sort of additional layer to the brand identity came to be. Could you kind of tell us the thought process between, did the elephant in the logo come first, or did the idea there come? What came first?
Yeah, so the logo and the idea came first. I'm a fan of mascot logos for service companies. Myself personally, I feel like they're a little bit more approachable. And so when we came up with the elephant, we said, man, it would be really cool, since elephants are endangered species, ways that we could tie that brand back to actually giving back. And so that's what kind of led us to, this epiphany that how epic would it be if we could adopt baby elephants in like our customers' names? For like every floor, like a baby elephant could, get sponsored. Like how cool would that be? And so, we contacted the WWF. We talked about them, talked about the whole process with them, and they were excited. And so that partnership began.
Incredible. So you've built this brand identity to get started. What then is the marketing strategy to actually attract customers to a new floor coating business?
So for us, what we found works extremely well is Facebook. Advertising on Facebook is one of our top channels. We have our cost per leads, our customer acquisition costs, our average customer values really, really well dialed in on that channel. And those metrics are really important to look at for any marketing strategies, so you can compare and say, hey, what's effective, what's not effective? If we change up the offer, we change up the copy, we change up the hook, how much more effective will it be, or how less effective will it be? Direct mail has been really good for us. Of course, we, use Google and we use other channels as well. And really what we do is we have a mad scientist marketing budget every month as well for us to just test out crazy ideas. Because if you're just doing the same thing every single month, you're not innovating, you're not looking at other channels, it's really going to kind of fall flat. So right now we're, doing a lot more experimentation with TikTok and seeing some good early results there. So we just always want to kind of be experimenting with new channels to kind of play with.
You mentioned at startup, you were kind of spending several $1,000s in that first month on advertising. And what does that look like now? What's the typical month on the ad spend, and where are you spending it?
We have budgeted to pretty much spend anywhere between 8 and 10% of our total gross revenue in marketing. So if we are anticipating doing $100,000 a month, we knew, hey, we have to spend 10 grand as quickly as possible. So that's why in those first 4 months, we ramped up from spending a few $1,000s to $10,000. And then that's what got us that $100,000 in sales. And that trend has remained very, very predictable. So, currently for us to do $500,000 in a given month, we're spending close to $40,000 to $50,000 in marketing across our different channels.
Obviously, those numbers can add up pretty quickly. When a business is starting out, and you mentioned, starting below that number necessarily at the beginning there, are there any like low cost or free marketing strategies that a new business should also be deploying when they're on that limited budget?
Yes, absolutely. So for limited budgets or free marketing things, there's no such thing as free marketing. It's just, what does it cost? Instead of costing money, it'll cost time. And, what I call bog marketing, boots on the ground marketing, going and knocking on doors, going and talking to customers, those things cost time. And it depends on what you value your time at. If your time is free and you're paying yourself $0 an hour and you're first getting started, well, then you could say that's pretty cheap. But, at some point, transitioning over to a predictable marketing channel that's not dependent upon your time, since your time is finite, is really, really important. I see a lot of business owners fall in the hustle trap where they just get out there and they hustle and they grind and they do this. And then before they know it, they hit their cap of what they're able to do. Because not only are they selling, but they're also doing the work, and they're doing this and they're doing that. And they're doing the admin, they're doing the payroll, and they're doing the scheduling. It just ends up being burnt out very quickly. So the more quickly you can transition your marketing to, a spend that you can dial in your customer acquisition costs, the better. But, lots of other things that, you can do. One of the biggest things that we did was we contacted every other service business and type in the area and just introduced ourselves. And, I'd call up someone and say, hey, my name is Brandon with Wise Coatings. I own a floor coatings company. I saw that you do painting. We're looking for painters because our customers ask us if we do painting, and we say, no, we don't. Can you tell me a little more about your business? And then they're happy to tell everything about their company. And at the end of it, we're like, man, this is great. We should totally meet up and have lunch and change business cards. And you can kind of develop a little referral network with other home service business owners to refer work to you and kind of build that up. And so, at the beginning, when we first started, we spent a lot of time doing that so we could build up some other referral sources. And that's free, costs your time, right? But very powerful marketing strategy.
Are there any tools or software that you utilize for marketing, and how do those help grow the business, and why do you recommend that particular tool or software?
Yes. So our primary CRM, customer relationship management software that we use, is called House Call Pro. And that's a really big one that we use. We also use QuickBooks, of course, for our bookkeeping and expense tracking. We use QuickBooks Time for our time tracking for all of our technicians, so we don't have to manually track any of that stuff. We use Sortly for our inventory management. We use Fleetio for our fleet management. We use GoDunzo.com for our marketing automation and pipeline tool. So every job that we finish, all the customers automatically get postcard sequences of all their neighbors. And automated thank you brownies with their names get printed on it at the end of every job, to kind of build out that customer experience, asking them for referrals, et cetera. And then we also use a VoIP system called Vonage. That's our call answering center. Instead of it ringing to your personal cell phone, like, get a professional business line as well. So we're a very technology centric company, and really that's kind of a key. It's hard to have a piece of software not give you a positive return on your investments, unless you're just not leveraging it somehow. So highly recommend those platforms.
In addition to the revenue growth, the location growth comes with employee growth. So I'm curious, how many employees did you have on day one, and how many do you have today?
Yeah, great question. So from day one, what we decided to do was for me not to answer any phone calls from customers, go out and do any in-person sales, go out and do any of the physical work at all. So from day one, I hired 3 employees, full-time salesperson and 2 full-time technicians. And my full-time salesperson, we just had the Vonage phone directly ring to his cell phone. So he would answer the phone as Wise Coatings. He would get the leads. He would enter them into the CRM. He'd go out, he'd close them, and he'd schedule them. He ran out of time really quickly. So within the first 2 months, we hired a full-time office manager to then take over the phones and just page out leads and page out sales to him, and then actually manage the scheduling and all the other stuff that was going on. So within month 3, I think we had 70 employees. And, now to date, we have, upwards of 40 employees right now across our 8 different locations.
And, thinking about the time period at which you were growing, one of the major headlines in business news has just been about how difficult it has been to get people hired and attract reliable and high quality employees. So how have you done it? What tips do you have to find high quality applicants and get them on the team?
Oh man, Alex, we could literally devote the whole rest of the podcast to this one topic. I get really fired up on this. I travel nationally and speak on this very topic. The short answer, the most powerful answer is marketing. What's a tougher sell? Convincing a customer to get their floor coated, or convincing another human being that they should spend more time with you than they spend at home during their waking hours with their family to, come work for you? It's like a way tougher sell. But most business owners don't think of that side of it as a true marketing game. And it is. You have, just like you track your cost per lead, your cost per acquisition, your customer acquisition costs, your employees are your internal customers. And you have to, test out different subjects and hooks and videos and ad channels and, have tracking links and identify, what's my customer acquisition costs on Indeed and Facebook and ZipRecruiter and WorkStep. And if you don't spend any money towards that and don't spend any intentional marketing diligence towards that, you'll always struggle with finding enough employees. And then there's a whole nother thing that I could talk about on actually keeping them and attracting them and retaining them. But again, we'd be here forever. So that's the short answer.
I mean, can you give us the short version of retention tips as well?
You don't want me to leave that open loop out there?
No, yeah, we got to close that.
Yeah, right. The biggest thing is, why would someone want to care about your hopes and dreams with your business if you never care about theirs? And the big part of that is, when we bring employees in, we ask them literally hey, what are your dreams? What are you looking to accomplish? In 3 years' time, for you to feel like you've won in life and you've accomplished some of your dreams, what would those look like? They tell us they want to buy a house. They want to pay off their truck. They want to go on this epic vacation. They want to propose to their spouse. Or what we do is we sit down with them. There's a really great book called The Dream Manager by Matthew Kelly. We sit down with them and then we show them how they can accomplish those while they work here with us. And we tie their performance to metrics. We bring in financial advisors and credit score advisors and, family household budget advisors and mortgage advisors and, new homeowner programs. And we help them accomplish those while they're here. So it's irrelevant what we do. They will always say this is the best company they've ever worked for. And they tell everybody about that business. And then, they really genuinely, truly feel cared for at the company. And we do. We genuinely care deeply about them leveling up in their life. And it just attracts a different quality of person. And it also brings this attraction cycle into where employees literally line up at your door to come work for you. And that's kind of the feeling that we have right now, and the feeling that I had with AllClean as well. We were very intentional about that side of it.
And when you're having those kind of early discussions with a potential employee, what are you looking for either in the resume or interview that kind of signals to you, oh, this is going to be a great hire? And I guess the flip side, are there anything that instantly raises a red flag for you about somebody in those conversations?
Really good question, Alex. Really good question. We have a centering principle that's our core values. So we established very early on, what are our core values of Wise Coatings? And we have it spell an acronym BASE. The B stands for Buffalo, which is run towards problems, charge the storm. The A stands for ascend, always be looking at leveling up no matter what you do personally, professionally. The S stands for serving others first. The E stands for efficiency. We work with products that cure super fast. So we have to be efficient, not just work fast, but we have to be every movement has to be very intentional. So in our interviews, we ask how those words strike the feelings of our applicants. And there are people that will say like, serve, I don't know about that. I don't want to be a servant, like that turns them off. We know instantly they're going to be a bad culture fit. When we ask them about what do they do personally to ascend and to level up, if they have no aspirations, they have no desire to improve their current life state, it's really hard to coach someone like that into bettering their lives and helping them achieve their dreams when they have none. So those are red flags we look for. And we look for those white flags that, are people that are like really aligned on our core values. We have all of our interview questions kind of centered and around those core values. And we look for a good culture fit. It's easy to teach someone how to do the thing. You need to have those soft skills that really matter when you're, talking to people.
So this is going to bring us to a section of the show that we call our Fan Blitz questions. These come from our YouTube community. So make sure you go find UpFlip on YouTube, join the community, and you can pose questions to future podcast guests. Brandon, we're going to try and get through about 6 or 7 questions in about 90 seconds here. We'll see how we do, but here we go. Alex Acosta has 2 questions, so I'm going to give them to you in 2 different parts. So the first question being, what percentage of the revenue do you pay yourself as the owner?
So I actually pay myself a salary that represents close to about 10% of revenue. And then what I will do is take owner's distributions out of any surplus that we have that will account for more than 10%.
Alex Acosta's second question is, how do you demand higher prices than your competitors?
Perceived value. It has to be a performance art theater in front of customers. And, you have to value stack on stuff to where people won't just look at the price. They'll look at how much value they get with you as compared to other people. And that can be perceived value aside from just actual real tangible value.
Brian Garnt would like to know, what system have you implemented in your business that has been the most impactful?
Most impactful has been our marketing systems for sure, because that drives the kind of growth that we're experiencing.
At this stage of success, what advice would you give to your teenage self?
Get out of the truck as fast as humanly possible. Get off the tools. Start working on your business, not in it.
What's the worst part about being an entrepreneur?
Living in a constant state of being uncomfortable and being comfortable with that.
What's the best part?
It's almost the same answer, but having the gift of being able to choose exactly who your coworkers, partners, and people you surround yourself with on a day-to-day basis is.
Last one here. If you could have anyone in this world endorse your business, who would it be and why?
Oh, man. Elon Musk. Although why he would endorse a garage floor coatings business, I have no idea. But he's a huge inspiration to me. And so that would be pretty epic to have someone like that endorse it.
Well, I mean, you want to have the floor of your garage look good under the Tesla, right?
That's right. I want to coat the floor in SpaceX factory. That's what I want to do.
That's going to do it for our Fan Blitz questions. Again, those come from our YouTube community. Go over to youtube.com/UpFlip, join the community, and pose questions to future guests. Brandon, a few more questions from me. Sticking in the tools and systems category, what are you using to schedule your team and manage workflow?
So that's that House Call Pro app that we use. We have all of our trucks dispatched. Our employees, they can't mark a job completed until they go through pre-done checklists, like leaving the yard signs out, getting payment from the customer, literally manage everything in our business. So highly, highly, highly recommend House Call Pro for that.
How do you define effective management and leadership, and why is that crucial for a new business?
I think that I define effective management leadership as balancing a servant leader with a high performance team mentality. Some people get confused that their work is a family. The nature of the employment agreement is temporary. No one's going to stay at your company for 40 years like they used to maybe 40 years ago. So acknowledging that we have a common goal. I'm going to serve you and I'm going to help you level up while you're here, and we're all going to win. When you look at Super Bowl teams, you ask anyone on that team, including the janitor, what's your job? And they'll say to win a Super Bowl. And with that type of intention and that team mentality, it requires accountability. It requires following the systems. It requires, being a little bit of a stickler when it comes to implementing and, doing what you say you're going to do. So I think effective leaders really balance that well.
What's your role in the day-to-day, and how many hours a week are you working, and what is most of that time spent doing?
My role right now is coaching the people on my team. So I have a COO and I have, individual partners at each one of our locations that I talk to on a regular basis. I work in the business about, I'd say probably 5 hours a week or less currently. And that's really what I spend my time doing. I hire smart people so that they come in and tell me what to do. I don't like to tell people what to do. I want to get a really epic team that comes in and knows things that I don't know. So, really my role is, driving new business in on a macro level and then letting the team, do the day to day.
I want to kind of shift for the next few questions into the customer journey for you. And so to start, where are the most productive sources of new business for you today? Is that most customers contacting you through your website, or where are they coming from?
It's really a blend. Like I mentioned earlier, Facebook is a really great channel for us. We do invest in SEO, so we get a lot of organic traffic that comes through. We do have other channels that we have for direct mail. So people will have a little QR code on there that they can scan that takes them to a contact form, or we'll have like a tracking phone number, or when they call that phone number in our Dunzo app, it'll show where each of those lead sources come from, so we can kind of track those percentages. But mostly it's through digital format that we get most of our customers.
Then once you get the customer, what is the information that you need to collect to write out an accurate quote? And is there anything that someone who is maybe new to the business that they might miss or get wrong about developing those quotes and estimates?
I think there's all the standard stuff, name, address, email address, phone number. Lead source is really the most important thing that you have to deeply understand to be able to track your marketing efforts. Things where a lot of people fail is, someone will say, "Oh, where'd you hear about us?" "Oh, I saw you online." "Oh, awesome." And they were like, online is the lead source. Like, you got to drill down on that stuff. But secondly, like when it comes to the actual, sales side of things, there's a whole process that kind of is, that we follow, and a system that we follow to, agitate pain with the customer and to really, kind of show the value that we present to them. But just in that initial contact, really lead source and those types of things are the most important things that we are very critical towards.
And then once you kind of get to that step, what are the next things that come once the quote's getting prepared through the completion of the job?
So we will page out quotes to our salespeople, and our service consultants will go out to the customer, do a walk around, and we have a 4-step process: connect, discover, show, close. So connecting with the customer, we teach our sales consultants how to do body mirroring, how to understand their DISC assessment of their customers by looking and studying kind of who they are, understanding their communication styles and adapting that. You talk to a little old lady who's very concerned, about something different than a fast moving business executive. It's a high D personality and just wants to get things done. So we teach that part of it. Discover, asking tons of questions and, agitating pain points of, they ever hired contractors for in the past? What was the, thing that was most frustrating in the last contractor you dealt with? What's your most frustrating contractor experience? What's one thing you'd want us to do? One thing you wouldn't want us to do? And then really show is the next part of it, showing that perceived value. And then the close part. A lot of business owners, they don't close. They don't ask for the sale. They don't present it. They don't, give financing options to every single customer. All those things make a big difference in your closing ratios, and you can track that percentage and start kind of dialing in, your sales pitch. And that's a big part of the process too.
Does that process change at all between residential versus commercial clients?
Very little. The jobs get bigger and the needs change. And there may be a little more of a functional need as opposed to an aesthetic need when you get on the commercial side. So there's a little more of a technical specification. Like if you have, a high traffic area and you have to put, sand in with the mixtures and you have to do multiple layers and minimum, mill thicknesses and things, it gets a little bit more technical. But at the end of the day, you're still selling to people, and people buy from people they like. And so, having that connect component still applies to those commercial customers.
Through all these conversations that your team has had with customers, and I'm sure you've had plenty of conversations with these customers as well, what do they want from their experience with a floor coating company? And how do you maintain that customer satisfaction in your business, especially as you grow?
What's amazing is, have you ever hired like a contractor, Alex, to come work at your house?
I haven't at my house, but I have when I was at a business I was running.
So it's like getting people to show up, answer their phones, do what they say they're going to do, finish jobs on time. Things do come up and issues happen, but they just want to know that they're going to be taken care of, and it's not going to be hell on earth to try to follow up and get, fixes and get problems solved. And like, that's the biggest reason why we have so many 5-star reviews, is just because, we just do what we say we're going to do. And we systemize the heck out of everything so that way it's the same experience from customer to customer, no matter who's the employee, no matter who's, the team member that comes in. And so, that's really how you get that high level of customer satisfaction, is just by being consistent.
Yeah, doing the things you say you're going to do shouldn't be such a competitive advantage, but it sounds like it is.
It is. It's unbelievable. It really is. Yeah.
Now, I'm sure that you have you had any dissatisfied customers? I'm sure there's been some dissatisfaction. So how do you handle those complaints and kind of resolve those issues?
Well, there's a mantra that I live by, which all conflict is unmet expectations. So if there's some type of mismatch of expectations of what the salesperson said and the customer said, or your brochure says and your customer didn't read that part, it's all unmet expectations. So what we really take a look at is we'll always err on the side of saying, did we not set that expectation clearly enough? Could we have done more to really set that expectation by being, very clear in our transparency? And for the most part, that's really where 90% of the issues come, is from a fault on our side. Do you have the ridiculous customers? Of course. There's those humans that exist out there to just make everyone's lives around them not super enjoyable. They complain about everything. And some of them are, have evil intentions along with that as well. But those are extremely rare. So we don't punish all the good customers by putting all these nasty stuff in there and require all this crazy stuff to, avoid that 1% of the terrible customer. And we'll oftentimes write off jobs and just kind of go above and beyond to make sure a customer is satisfied, and, and just tell them, hey, we don't have any customer that we've left completely unsatisfied, and we're not going to do that with you. And that really helps disarm people a lot.
One thing that has really struck me about the Wise Coding story is sort of how much of a grasp you had on the financial realities of the business from Go. So can you talk about the importance of financial planning for a small business and some tips that you might have for doing it effectively?
Yeah. So man, when I first started my exterior cleaning business, I had never made a budget before. No clue how to do it. My first guess on what a budget was, like my 5-year plan, was laughable. I mean, I wasn't even close to the numbers that I projected. And that's how your first budget's going to feel. It's going to feel like a total guess. You'll be totally wrong. But when you get in the act of actually looking at your P&L, your balance sheet, your statement of cash flows on a monthly basis, having a good bookkeeper do your books, then you can really start to identify trends and start seeing percentages. Now it's at the point where I could look at any business's profit and loss, and within about 2 minutes, know what their biggest problems are due to certain benchmark percentages in service industries. And so, when I started Wise Coatings, before we even did our first job, I laid out an entire annual budget with what our monthly sales goals are, our target COGS, our target, fixed expenses, what our target net profit was going to be, what our assets were going to be, and just kind of went into execution plan. Now, 2 months in, we had to adjust, months 3 through 12 on the budget sheet, which is to illustrate that budgets are a living, breathing document. And you can, you should inform and change, and adjust future numbers based on what your performance is. Still go for those aggressive goals and try not to go too easy on yourself, but push yourself enough to where you can understand how you can hit those numbers and reverse engineer those goals that you have, rather than just saying, I'm going to do $1 million this year. Like, how many employees is that? How many jobs is that? How many leads is that? What's your closing ratio? Like, reverse engineer it to where you can get that daily activity that's going to get you to that $1 million goal.
What is the next financial goal for Wise Coatings, and what are you setting up to achieve it?
So for us, my goal at the beginning of this was to build Wise Coatings to $100 million exit. And so, our target is 5 years for that. So we want to build this up. We want to get 100 locations nationally, get them all up to 7-figure businesses. We are looking for national business partners that want to own a Wise Coatings location all over the country so that they can work with us and we can deploy all these systems, and then we can just help them grow their businesses to that level. So that's our next big financial goal, is to basically create 100+ millionaires with Wise Coatings. And it kind of goes along with a really cool quote that I love from Zig Ziegler, which is you can have everything you want in life if you help enough other people get what it is that they want. So that's our next big hairy audacious goal, our BHAG. We're going to try to tackle.
What's the biggest challenge you've faced in the business so far? And in hindsight, is there anything you could have done differently to avoid it?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge that we faced was in that month 2 when we went through Hell Week, as I call it, where everything went wrong. And it was mostly because, we didn't know what we didn't know. And there's a lot of technical, things to understand in the floor coatings business that, is a new endeavor for us. We had never done this before. So in hindsight, I'd say that if we were to do it all over again, we would have gotten a little bit more, training and coaching and kind of been led along a little bit more and gone to some experts on understanding stuff like, moisture and what the substrate material is made out of and all the different things that can go wrong and mixing issues and humidity and all the stuff that we just didn't know, that was a big hiccup. And, on that one job specifically, which unfortunately was really early in our growth, nearly bankrupted us. I mean, we got down to like our last $50 and it was anxiety inducing. I was like, oh my gosh, I have this YouTube channel. Like I'm going to fail on YouTube, like in front of all these people that are watching. And so, I talk about very transparently, kind of what we went through and how I kind of solved those issues with the team and made sure to keep team morale up during that time period. But this is kind of what being an entrepreneur is. You take on greater than average risk for a greater than average reward. And so in order to do that, you can fail. That's part of it. You are going to face hardships, guaranteed. And that's just part of the territory of being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
What is one piece of advice that you'd give to someone who wants to start a floor coating business?
Come join us at Wise Coatings. No.
I think that seems like great advice.
Plug, yeah. Right? Shameless plug. No, but seriously, there's a lot of stuff that definitely goes into it, especially on the technical side. You have one job that goes upside down. It's not we're going to go back and just do a little touch up on something. Usually it involves grinding the whole floor off and doing it all over again. And the labor and the expenses cost of that, can certainly add up. So definitely be patient with the learning curve in doing it. It does require bigger pieces of equipment, working with products that cure extremely fast. But the other part of it is the technical component represents about 10% of what actually is involved in growing a business. The biggest part is getting leads in constantly, because this is not a recurring service. This is a one-time service that you do. So nailing the marketing channels and the marketing systems, I'd say, is the most important component of it all.
If you could pick the one thing that people are going to take away from this interview, what would it be?
That you can grow a business without straight grind, hustle, work 60 hours a week, 80 hours a week. You can be really intentional with working on the business and thinking about it like an entity. A business is an asset that you can own, much in the way that owning an apartment complex is or a commercial property. Be intentional about working on the business, not just in it, and get a team, put systems in place, get your marketing engine going. And, I grew Wise Coatings from 0 to where it is now, legitimately, truly, and honestly working an average of, 5 hours a week in the business. I have other businesses that I have too. And this was, a project that I specifically worked on. I have a coaching company called Conquer. But this is, one that you can grow. So I want people to know there's multiple paths to entrepreneurship.
What's your favorite business book and why?
Oh man, The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. It's my favorite business book because it was the first one I ever read. And I think that it was probably the most powerful book I could have read at that time. I felt like someone was speaking to my soul and was looking in my bedroom windows and, he just knew me so well. And a lot of the things that I'm talking about on this interview are core principles that I learned from that book. So highly recommend that one.
Brandon, where can people learn more about you and Wise Coatings?
Well, they can learn more. They can go to our website, wisecoatings.com. If you're interested in, being a business partner in this crazy journey, you can go to wisecoatingspartners.com. If you own another business and you are just looking for business coaching and a community and a resource and want access to our systems that we have, you can go to conquernow.com. So three different options for you to go explore.
Fantastic. And listeners, we've got a YouTube interview in the works with Brandon as well. So make sure to keep an eye out for that if you want to hear more about how he grew his business. You can also check out the UpFlip blog for more actionable tips about starting a successful business. Brandon Vaughn of Wise Coatings, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Alex. I had a blast, man. Appreciate you.